Hey everyone, Margarita here. I'm going to film this episode a little bit into depth on my gangster ass granny. Now I did one episode where I talked about how my mother participated in contributing to my grandmother's death and poisoning her food the last couple of years of her life regularly and then almost daily there in the end, until she was able to paint my grandmother to look crazy when my grandmother tried to tell on her to the nurses, and then they basically sedated her until she was no longer here anymore. So you can view that video. I believe it was, I think it's labeled "My Mother Contributed to My Grandmother's Death," something like that, but it's my paternal grandmother, not her mother. So a little bit more on that so you can get a clearer picture, because when most people use the word grandma or grandmother, they're thinking of a sweet old lady, you know, with a purse who bakes cookies and, like, this is totally not who she was at all. Now, like I said in the video, she lived in Southwest Detroit her whole life. And I do know from what my dad has told me that his dad was in the mafia. And mind you, if my grandparents were alive today, they would be well over 100 years old, 120 something probably, because they were older when they had both sets of my grandparents. Because when they had my parents, those were like their second sets of kids. So they would be way older today, if they were still alive today. Now, I do know, based on what my dad has told me, that his dad was in the mafia. So this is his wife. So this grandmother that's still living, this is his wife. So you got to understand the mentality behind all of this. Because this is not like a sweet old lady walking around carrying a purse. Mind you, like, I do remember the one time there was this corner store by her house, and she would walk there regularly. And I remember going over there at age 3, 4, 5 years old regularly, where my parents would leave me there. It didn't become until, well, I started staying home alone around age 9 or 10. So she stopped bringing me over there probably around that time as well, regularly for my grandma to watch me. I think maybe one time when I was 11 or 12, she had dropped me off over there. Because she kept trying to paint the picture that I was this problem child who couldn't be trusted. So she needed someone to watch me. But I remember being about 3, 4 years old. We'd walk to this corner store regularly. So my grandma normally wore a dress or a muumuu. And if she was wearing a bra, because most of the time if she was home, she did not. If she was wearing a bra, it's because she went somewhere, and that's where she kept her money in cash in her bra. So she never carried a purse. So I'm talking about an old lady, no purse, wearing a muumuu. If she had a bra on, that's where her money was, and a strap on her leg with a gun in it. Not a concealed carry license with a gun being carried properly in a purse or something with a purse on her shoulder. No, she didn't even carry a purse. She legitimately would be wearing a muumuu, and she'd put a strap on her leg like a thug and put the gun in the strap and carry it. Like, that's how she would go about her day. If she were to leave her home, that's how she would leave and go about her day. Now, I remember being 3 or 4 years old, we walked to the corner store regularly. And I watched my grandma get ready to go, and I watched her strap up and get ready to go. And it was just me and her. And we walked to the corner store, and some guy in there at that time was saying something about me, or maybe the way I looked or how cute I was, or something along those lines. And she had actually lifted up her muumuu, whipped out her pistol, and started waving it around in the store and aimed it right at the guy and said something along the lines of, "Back up, don't talk to her, don't look at her, don't touch her." Like, I don't know. It was really funny. Looking back on it, like in the moment, it wasn't funny, but looking back on it, it's funny. So I've watched her pull out her pistol and aiming at a few people over the course of my life. And I was really small when all those instances occurred. But to me, that was normal. So, I mean, not just that, like she smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day. So we're not talking about your average grandma. And, looking back over the course of my life and everything I've been through and everything my grandma used to talk about while I'd be sitting there and her life stories and everything she would be talking about, way beyond the scope of normal, of what a normal person's life would be like. And so looking over the course of time and what I've been through in my own life, and if you watch my other videos on the near-death experiences as well, and I'm like, literally, I'm just getting started. There's so much more to what I've been through and what I have to talk about. This was part of my life training. Having her as my grandma and what I had experienced growing up with her was actually part of my life training and what helped me be able to be knowledgeable enough to get through a lot of these crazy situations I've been forced to be put in, way beyond my control. So there's other situations separate from what my mother has caused, directly and indirectly, using other people and agencies. Then there's situations that, because of the way I was forced to live my life due to my mother's ongoing crimes, there's situations I've been put in that were very extravagant as well, separately from all of that. So I'll get to that in the future, because right now I kind of want to keep focused on what's going on with my dad, his injury, because in the current, my mother still does need to be apprehended immediately. And so does the first tier level of individuals involved in all these decades of crimes against me and using these large agencies and these police departments and these court systems. All of these people are involved in the crimes, and I can prove every bit of it. So that is kind of what I want to stay focused on. So the majority of my videos right now, I want to kind of provide information, supporting information on all of this and how all of this came about and where everything has come from and where it's gotten to today. So that's kind of why I'm skipping around with the different bits of information that I'm delivering within my videos. Now, looking back over everything, even though my mother had my dad under her control over all of these decades, and I've been gone for 20 some years now, from their house and from directly under her thumb, but she's using other people to still cause these serious issues in my life from afar. So he's been manipulated along the way to believe, she just repeats delusions in his presence. And so his thought process on this or that along the way is a little twisted. So he's not, he wasn't, even before his injury, wasn't always fully on the right page of what exactly was going on and what was the cause of this or that along the way. Because there's all these instances where she'd create all these chaotic, dramatic events, which would cause extreme chaos in my life directly. And it would cause all these 911 calls, all these situations, especially once my injury became extreme. This just got so far out of control once I became injured in 2018. And that's what she does. She uses other events and she inserts herself and then uses those events to carry out further destruction and using all these agencies to help her do so. So here my dad is along the way, still getting brainwashed regularly by my mother. Mostly my daughter is the most brainwashed of my kids. My older son has a separate issue with his paternal grandmother, but there is still some brainwashing involved with him and my mother. Whether he realizes it or not, there is still something there. It's just kind of very distant. And then my younger one is not allowed around her at all. He's never been. So if she sent pictures of anyone, of my younger son to anyone, she very rarely had a crossing of paths with him to be able to get that picture. And you could tell she was grasping for straws, trying to be able to get that picture of him to present it to other people as well. Because she was actually told at one point she was not allowed to take pictures of him. Now, there is no relationship between them. So now going back to my dad here, along the way, all these decades here, my dad's being manipulated by my mom. All this time, all these stories she's telling him about me, which aren't real. But at the same time, I'm having to live my adult life very differently than everybody else because of the chaos and crime she's created and the way I've had to go about making my money and maintaining everything and providing and still able to build and try to do what I've set out to do initially. But there's all these disruptions along the way. I've had to go about my life very differently. And, you know, looking back over the course of time, all of those instances and that information my grandmother was talking about and giving me when I was growing up, it actually played a role in how I was able to get through all of these situations that I was presented with along the way, some of which pertain to my mother's crimes, some totally separate. Either way, I was forced to live my life differently, which then created these other situations I'd be caught up in or what would be going on because of her criminal actions against me. So along the way, you know, because my dad always maintained a relationship with us separately and he was always allowed in my homes and my mother was not, here he was, you know, kind of knowing somewhat some of these situations that were going on. And then, you know, in the way I'm forced to live my life differently, he's like fully aware of this stuff, but just maybe not really understanding why. So he knew somewhat who I am as a person, but still being brainwashed and manipulated to believe something different. But, you know, so the thing is here, he didn't realize, I'm looking back over the course of all this time now, because I've had some time to reflect and think, because I've pretty much been sheltering in place the last couple months. So this time period has been able to allow me to release these videos, kind of bring all of my memories together. Now that I've had the degree of treatment that I have, my brain has healed a certain amount, a whole lot of memories have come back. I've been able to kind of piece it all together. And looking back over the course of all this, you know, my dad's response to a lot of what he has personally saw me going through or saw me doing or what I'd be involved in or what's going on, because mind you, he'd be in and out of my house regularly from time to time. So he's seen some of this, even though he's still being brainwashed. He was so nonchalant about whatever he was seeing going on, or my activities as an adult, or whatever he like saw or perceived, doesn't really matter. He was so nonchalant about everything that was going on. And this is not anything to be nonchalant about. Any of the direct situations that he was involved in and what my mother was causing, or separately, the way I've been forced to live my life and the things I've been forced to deal with and juggle and these other situations and the ways I've gone about making my money and what's all gone on. He's so nonchalant about all of it that, you know, it's just way over his head. And I see why now, because of who his mother was. So my grandmother was such an extreme person in that manner, such a thug, that what he's seeing me deal with and what my behaviors and my activities and the way I'm making my money along the way and the different situations here I was involved in, whether it be directly or indirectly or totally separate, either way, my mother's actions are at the root of all this. He was so nonchalant about everything he had like seen along the way or what he did know as facts regarding me. Everything just went right over his head because of the extreme nature of his mother's behavior with him growing up with her as his mother all of his life. And then he's looking at me and what I deal with and the situations I'd be involved in. And that's why he was so nonchalant about all of it, because of who his mother was. And it's just kind of funny because I'm really looking at it now, like all the things that like he did see or he did know. That's why he was, everything just went right over his head. He just like shrugged it all off like it was normal behavior or whatever. It's because of who his mother was, and what he grew up with. So to him, I'm like an extremely mild version of all that, even though my life is extremely chaotic and what I've been through is pretty extreme. He's not looking at it like that because of who his mother was. Now, if you've watched some of my videos on the near-death experiences, and I'm going to get way more into all these other things that have gone on because there are so many situations along the way. I just want to stay like, you know, toward my dad right now because that situation does need to be addressed immediately. So, now with him, you know, his mother passed when I was 15, so this was 1999. His dad did pass. I believe he was 5 years old at that time. So I never met my grandfather, and I never met my mother's parents either. Both of them were older and had passed by the time I was born as well. So this was my only living grandparent. I did have a great grandmother on my mother's side who lived till I was 8 years old. But you know, she lived far away, minimal contact. She had so many kids and grandkids, you know, I was just another number in the bunch. So this was really my only grandparent. Now, after I had died and came back the first time, so that's my near-death experience video number 2. After my brain had swelled from the carbon monoxide, after it had fully broken through my brain tissue and I was dead upstairs in my bed for 4 hours after a 4-hour brain swelling episode, and I knew I was gonna die. I eventually came back on my own, and it was like a movie how my soul had re-entered my body and jumped into my body, and when I woke up I had gasped for a huge breath of air and then didn't even realize that's what happened for about a year. It really took me about a year from that day to piece together what had actually happened, because I then from that point forward had walked around with my soul loose in my body. Not only was there inches of space between my brain and my skull, but my soul remained like not intact within my human body. It was so loose, and I lived that way, and I could feel it. And I was barely able to get from point A to point B. Here I am in an extreme medical emergency, no treatment within the medical system. No one's comprehending anything I'm trying to say because I also can't string sentences together and describe what has happened. Even though it's known it was carbon monoxide, this is what caused it all, no one's listening to me because my mother was over here manipulating the hospital system because she was still their employee at this time. Here I was walking around with my soul loose in my body, and I knew if I were to get in a car accident that my soul was going to fly right out of my body and I was going to be dead immediately. I knew that. So that went on for a little over 3 years. Once I had gotten, it was a little over 2 years of treatment maybe, daily, and then I still had the loose soul feeling in my body, and I would, I just went to treatment every day thinking eventually it'll fix it, because over the course of time, as my brain tissue was healing and sealing, those inches of space slowly dissipated. And my brain slowly regrew to where it needed to be. Even though it's still open in the top and the front right now, it's not 100% sealed. There is an extreme degree of difference from where I was initially, but the way my soul remained loose in my body from that initial near-death experience, I did die, and I came back, and here I was walking around with my soul loose in my body. And I couldn't even describe that to anybody or tell anybody. But what I had done to fix it, so this was, about a little over 2 years into treatment. So this is probably the beginning of 2021. It was like February, March, April, May. I believe I did 4 Reiki sessions. And I found this lady named Cheryl. I believe her office was in Southfield, Michigan at the time. So I went all the way out there because I knew I needed something different to take another step in fixing what was going on with me and my injury, and how I was gonna, fix the entire injury as a whole. And there was numerous problems here, and the system was not helping me. Here I was treating at the private center, which is now closed down due to the little boy exploding in the hyperbaric chamber in Troy, Michigan recently. And that's the only reason we're alive. But that wasn't gonna just cut it. There was more to my situation. There was a spiritual issue. And the issue was my soul was not like sewn into my body the way everybody else is born like that. That was not I remained that way day in and day out. And I felt it wobbling around, like I could feel it loose the whole time. So even after all that treatment, here I'd made significant progress. And then the back of my brain stopped sagging. The continuous throbbing had stopped. Although I was very fragile, there was still, forward movement was still needed. But I had made significant progress. So I figured out, I don't even know how I was led to this, but I tried to go get a Reiki session with this lady named Cheryl. So I did, and it worked significantly. The first one worked very significantly. I had to go, I knew it was so extreme I needed more than one. And after that first week, after the first one, some extreme things had gone on. So maybe I'll get more into that in its own video. Some extreme things had gone on, significant change had started to happen, and I knew I needed another one. So I scheduled them about a month apart for about it was about 4 times it happened. And it helped the problem. It sealed my soul back into my human body where I was not slipping in and out of my body anymore. Because now looking back over it, what had all happened, I mean, I figured this out a few years ago. But what was going on was my soul was so loose in my body that sometimes when I would fall asleep, my soul would leave my body. And I know this because at one point, so before the Reiki sessions, this is probably 2019 to 2020 maybe. I do recall, it was during COVID. That's it. So it was 2020. So during COVID, because I remember staying up late because I was helping people with their unemployment. And I would certify for certain people because they didn't understand the system. And these are people I always helped with their taxes as well along the way. So it was a set of people. I would do this, and when you have to certify in a certain day. So I was up late. It was 4 or 5 in the morning, and I was waiting for the system to change over overnight so I could do the certification for these people. And there was a bar behind me over here in this room by the fireplace, and I was sitting at the bar. I was using it as my desk. I had my computer up here. I was doing this work, and I was getting so tired waiting for the clock to turn like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or whatever it was. And here I was falling in and out of consciousness. And what was happening was, as I'd fall out of consciousness, falling asleep, mind you, I have all these brain injuries, so I'm always in and out of consciousness, and I can't control it all hours of the day and night. It's a little less frequent now where I am today. It still happens, but it was still extreme at this point. Here, I was falling in and out, and each time I'd fall asleep, my phone was next to me, and a notification would go off on my phone because I also had a camera system surrounding the outside of my house. So the notification would go off on my camera system, and all in this one night, and I fell asleep, and the drrrr would wake me up, and I'd be like, well, okay, and here I was, I'm like on the computer, I'm doing stuff, but I'm still falling asleep during this, and it happened like 5 or 6 times, and then here I was nodding off, and then it went drrrr, it went off, and I'm like, okay, and finally I get done what I had to do, and I'm like, I'll finish this in the morning. Finally I go upstairs, lay down in my bed, leave the phone at the foot of the bed, and I fall asleep, and I hear it again. It goes off. I'm so exhausted. I don't even touch it. I don't wake up. But that time, the phone had picked up a long recording of the backyard camera, and my soul kept jumping into the backyard camera on the other side of the wall where I was sitting when I was initially falling asleep. Either way, that's still where my soul went once I went up to my bedroom. Was going to the same camera in the backyard right here in the corner, and I was trying to talk to the camera. So my soul is talking to the camera in the backyard, and not only that, but I had this dark attachment attached to me, which you could see in the background because it was a several minute video, and I believe that's what I was trying to tell myself within what I was trying to do subconsciously was tell myself that this thing there's a dark entity attached to me, because the dark entity was also wearing my watch. You can see it clear as day in the video, floating behind me. My soul is in the front and center of this camera, and like 10-15 feet back is this dark entity that's like, it looks like it's floating around on a train, and it's attached to me, and it's wearing my watch. And so this sounds so strange, but that's what was going on. I didn't realize it. It took that video and that instance for me to realize that's what was going on. And then I eventually got led to Cheryl to do the Reiki sessions several months later. So at the same time, during that like several month time frame was the time I was remembering what had all happened with my grandmother as well. And I was having memories of all types since the first brain injury, since giving birth while suffering from the carbon monoxide poisonings when it all started. And then it progressed from there. And then with each injury progressed from there. So all of it's tied together. But I eventually realized that I had to remove this thing that was attached to me. And there was also other signs I was receiving along the way, and a family friend on my mother's side of the family, one of the good family members who had then passed on as well in 2019. That passing, so each time a family member had passed, because there was numerous during my injury, it was like that person was aware of what had gone on with me all these decades and what my mother was doing and all these crimes she was committing and the distress I'm in and what's all going on. As each person passed along the way, it's like they were trying to help me from the other side. And I was getting very clear messages each time someone would pass that this was the case. And so now there's been like 6, 7, 8 of them, I think, at this point since the beginning of my injury. With each passing, the person would then, they'd be so close to the other side since they had recently passed that, and because I was living so close to death, I was walking such a fine line between life and death myself, and I remained that way for years, and my soul loose in my body for years, that I was directly connected to the other side so closely. Which is why when I had the memory of my grandmother passing and the earthquake happening and then asking for signs and being able to communicate with her, that's why I was able to receive those messages so clearly, because I was so connected to the other side as well. So with each passing, each family member, here they were directing me. And now the one lady, I actually had a phone conversation with her when she was still living. She was giving me more information, and then she eventually passed several years ago as well. So now she's aware of what's going on because I remember physically talking to her and having this whole conversation with her when I was figuring everything out. And she had actually given me more information that was very imperative. So now she's on the other side as well. And all of these people are like teaming up on the other side, trying to help me get this situation under control in my actual waking life currently. And it's been building to that slowly with the passing of each person. And because I'm so close to the other side, even now, like I still receive the messages that directly. It's just my soul isn't loose in my body anymore. So when I'd had that conversation with the one lady, that's what led me to find Cheryl and do the Reiki sessions, which then sealed my soul into my body where I was no longer slipping out of it every time I'd fall asleep and my soul's leaving my body and I'm just floating around in the backyard having a good old time. I don't know what the hell I was doing. Because I don't really remember any of this, but I have a picture, I have a still frame picture of my soul in the camera in the backyard. I did try to save the video, but the video, I don't have the video. I do have a still frame picture of it though, but you can't see the dark entity attached in the one that I do have. But you can see clear as day that that's my soul in my body, that had left my body, and I'm trying to tell myself through my camera system, and my phone is picking this up through the camera system and recording it, and that's kind of what led me to the next step, because then my ex was still living here at the time, and he woke up, thought he saw a ghost on the camera, and then messaged me something about if I saw the ghost on the camera from the night prior, and I said, huh? And I went back and I look at it, because we're both receiving these notifications at this time. I go back and look at it, and I didn't realize immediately. It took me, it wasn't too long. It didn't take me very long to realize what it actually was, because my watch was so clear. It was bright. It was standing out. The brightest thing in the whole picture, my watch on the dark entity. And it took me, I don't know how long, but I figured it out fairly quickly that was actually me in the backyard camera, and then I just never told him it wasn't a ghost. It was me. My soul was slipping out of my body while I was falling asleep because I was so close to death for those few years that's what was happening. Here I was like leaving my body and just floating around doing whatever. I don't know what the hell I was doing or how many times this actually happened because I don't remember any of this. But I have the proof on the camera, and and numerous people saw this. I showed this to several people. And it was my daughter who pointed out the dark entity in the watch. It was me who saw my watch on it, and I was like, oh my God. So all of these messages came along through all these people who eventually crossed over, and then I was led to go to Cheryl, who then helped me seal my soul in the body. I recognized what was going on with the dark attachment. I'm actually the one who removed it. I figured it out, realizing the black-eyed kids experience that I had the 10 days before I had the brain swelling episode in January of 2018 at the place who caused my injury. I haven't released that video yet, but I will very soon. I did have a black-eyed kids experience. I did not even know who the hell they were. I've never even heard of them. It was my older son who enlightened me on the whole thing. He apparently had known for years because he'd always read books, and he's always interested in these strange books and Greek gods and like ghostly things. And, you know, he fully knew everything. And once I told him the experience, he knew exactly what I was talking about. And he was laughing at me. He's like, everybody knows not to let them in. I said, what? Like, I've never heard of it. What are you talking about? And then I kind of confronted my dad because he made me believe that stuff wasn't real. And so we actually had a whole argument about it at one point. Here my older son was with all the knowledge of the whole situation. My dad had been telling me my whole life that stuff isn't real. And here I am stuck in the middle, not even realizing what the hell had happened. But then several years in, had figured out what actually happened. So the whole thing was kind of funny. So I'll get into that in its own video in the Black Eyed Kids experience. But that's what happened, and that's actually how I got to live. Now, at the same time, I talked about the shooting that happened at the bar I worked at in Detroit, where the guy's name was Jeff, and he was shot and killed outside in front of my vehicle. And ever since I began treatment at the center, there was a live Jeff who was actually guiding me on what to watch while I was in the chamber treating, because you have to, you know, you can watch TV, you can't take anything in there. So they'll put a show on for you, and I'd have to find stuff that was many seasons because I was treating long term. He had led me to the show Supernatural. So what was actually playing out in my life in the moment while I'm watching this show daily was actually playing out in my actual life in real life time at this time. So now live Jeff is actually, he's been arrested, and now there's charges pending on the hyperbaric explosion place. That is live Jeff, who was leading me to what I was supposed to be watching and figuring all this stuff out. So that dark entity attachment, it played out while I was watching it in Supernatural. There's a whole several episodes where that is what happened to the character in Supernatural. So here I am piecing it all together because my real life is playing out on this TV show that I'm watching every day. And I ended up figuring it out, and I had enough knowledge from what I was taught as a child that actually led me to be able to remove this entity from myself. And at the same time, you know, this is so odd. I did remove it, but what was playing out in the show is the reason I got to live was because I had allowed that entity to attach itself to me, which also ties in with the Black Eyed Kids experience. So I'll get to that. It's its own separate video. I will put it under the near-death experience section on my playlist. But that is how I got to live. So once I died and came back, that dark entity attachment that was floating in my backyard camera attached to my soul, in my soul's front and center in the very front of the camera. I'm trying to tell myself what was going on is what it was. So I figured it out to a certain degree. I was able to remove the entity. Not only that, but it had then grown and attached itself to numerous family members within my household as well. And then I believe it attached to my dad because at one point after this, shortly after I began removing it, I went to his house while my mother she was in California at the time, long term. And then I went and I told him what was going on. And because this is shortly after we had this little argument about the Black Eyed Kids experience, and my son's trying to tell us what's going on. And here the both of us are kind of clueless. I figured it out, and I actually went over there and removed it from him. And I had pictures of that as well. I don't have them because I didn't download them to my phone. But clear as day, I showed several people. You could see these entities were in the manner in which I went about removing it. You could see them. And then he actually believed it after that because he could see it. He could see it. He could see them. And he had told a cousin that he said he didn't believe in any of that stuff until I had showed him all that and did all that. Because mind you, he works in the cemetery industry where he's regularly dealing with deceased individuals, and he's like not spiritually woke to that degree, or maybe not at all, or he wasn't at the time. Maybe since his injury a little bit has changed. But so this all ties together. What I was taught growing up with my grandmother, all of these instances, what had been going on, my soul leaving my body repeatedly, my soul not being intact inside my body after my injury, how I went about removing it, how I went about figuring everything out. All of these people play a role. All of these situations along the way play a role in what was going on, how I figured all this out, how I managed to, reverse the problem and get it under control to some type of degree. Everything's tied together. So, because I walk such a fine line between life and death, yes, I'm able to receive messages from the other side so clearly. Although I'm not clairaudient, I don't have that gift. it's different. It's something a little bit different than that. So maybe I'll talk about that in the other videos. But I'd had it basically since I had died and came back that first time. And it's still ongoing. And with the passing of each individual, they understand what's going on in my situation. They begin to help me. And most recently, my grandmother's oldest child had passed. So my dad's oldest brother, about a month or two ago. So since then, more stuff has been coming out. More messages are coming through. There's more help from the other side. And mind you, I did wake my deceased grandmother upon having that memory in 2020, I believe it was. And that's what caused that earthquake that we had here in Michigan. We don't get earthquakes here regularly. It's not, especially one that strong. And I do believe she caused it because that's when it all happened. Here I am asking for a sign. I believe I woke her. Her soul was not rested in the first place due to what my mother had done to her. And here I am trying to get this situation situated, and my dad's life is on the line. And my grandmother's over here trying to help me along the way. And now her oldest child is now on the other side with her. And he's, because I went and talked to him numerous times prior to his passing recently, and was trying to let him know like what was actually going on all this time. So all of a sudden I'm getting more help from the other side. And now along the way, here I am my entire life living in this chaos, experiencing all these odd situations that are not normal for a regular person all along the way, all of what I've been forced to deal with and how I'm forced to go about my life. And I've had all these strange incidences along the way. And what it is I actually have a whole team of spirit guides, ancestors, people watching over me who knew stuff was not right. Stuff is not situated properly in my life. There's distress amongst people who my mother has caused instances with along the way, or participating in their demise. There's numerous situations, and now that is currently going on with my dad, because this is not going to stop until someone apprehends her, because what she did to my grandmother is still currently going on with my dad as well. And if you read all of my different police report videos in the numerous cities I left police reports in advance, it proves everything I'm saying, because everything I'm saying in advance is happening, has happened, or is still happening currently. So it's all tied together. Here I am getting pieces of information along the way. And it's all come together fully. And now I've had a couple months to reflect, sit back on everything I've been through, everything that's gone on. And now looking back over the course of my entire life, here I've had all of these people who have passed who were unrested and saw everything from the other side very clearly. Here they were protecting me in all these different circumstances that have happened to me along the way. Here they are protecting me and, like helping me from the other side, helping me get through each extreme circumstance and helping from, and I've walked alone the majority of all of this, like with no help from anyone. Here I am figuring all of this out, all of these crazy chaotic events. And here they are protecting me from the other side, guiding me along each step of the way, sending the right people on my path immediately. When something goes wrong, like immediately, if I'm in need of that much help, the right person appears like literally within an instant. And that's been going on way before my injury. That's been going on. So all of these unrested ancestors, family members and whatnot, family, friends, yes, here they were each step of the way helping me, helping guide me, especially since my injury became extreme. But it had been going on my entire life. So I will get more into all those other circumstances as well, way prior to my injury, what's all been going on all this time. It all ties together. But, with the recent passing of my dad's oldest brother, here things are making another shift and another change. Here I was able to put out some of these videos, start releasing. I've been filming for quite some time, knowing I've needed to be filming for 6-7 years now. Here I am releasing everything. And it's making changes in the background, even though I don't see the changes yet. It is going on slowly. It's just there's so many people involved in the ongoing crimes, and these are such long-term crimes, and these are RICO crimes. Nobody wants to be caught, with their hands dirty and in trouble. But a lot of these people are involved, so that's why it hasn't blown yet. But it is getting there. It's slowly building. It is getting there. Each person plays a role in this, and then their passing, they kind of help me and guide me with what I'm supposed to do next. And I've been sitting here in dead silence, basically putting it all together in my mind. Though some more memories come back along the way. It's all there. Like, I've got every piece to the puzzle. It's all put together. There is a giant plot twist. I have not released that yet. I will get there, but I need to release everything else first. And I do need my mother apprehended because, yes, my dad's life is still in danger. I have been banned from him for about a year. Now, there is numerous problems with all of this because these are all very serious crimes. Many people involved at this point. So I am going to do the video next on how the probate court situation played out fraudulently in court as well, and I can prove all of that too, and those individuals involved in that. So I'm going to do that video next. But this all ties together because justice needs to be served, and what it is these unrested people have been helping me along the way. I might look lonely, might look like I'm out here alone, but I guarantee you each one of these people that have passed, they are sitting on my left shoulder, my right shoulder, behind me, around me. They surround my car when I drive. I'm talking, I've known this since the day that I came back from the first time I died and came back. I've known this, and I could feel it, especially with how loose my soul was in my body. They're unrested. They need justice themselves. I'm here to help serve that justice. I also have a very big life purpose at the same time. This is just one of the big circumstances that I'm involved in, so I can cross that threshold and get to the point where I can serve the rest of humanity and deliver the rest of the messages and make changes in the world because my life purpose is so great. So I've been extremely protected. So not only do I sit on the right hand of God, but I also, because I'm one of the 144,000 chosen ones, and I know that now. I did not know that until several years ago, but I know that now. I sit on the right hand of God. Not only that, but I have an entire team of archangels, ancestors, family members, and friends that have seen everything, that are unrested. These people are all protecting me. Not only that, not only do I have archangels, but I've got regular angels, and I interact with demons as well. And they have to respect me as well. So there's a respect amongst the demons as well. And I'm very well aware of this at this point. I've known for some time now. That is what's going on. That is how I'm able to jump every hurdle that's been put in front of me. Because if you look at everything I've been through, I am several walking miracles over again. And that's why I keep being brought back to life every time I die and come back without medical intervention, without help from the medical system. So this team of people, they are all deceased. I've got ancestors sitting at the top at the right hand of God. Well, I've got all these angels, and I've got all these demons as well respecting me and backing me up on every move I have to make and what's going on and how I have to weave in between and the strange circumstances I have to go by in order to get situations in order. It's all there. They're all protecting me. They all have my back. My mother is the devil. She carries the spirit of the devil, and that's who I've been sent here to conquer. That's why I'm still here. That is what's still going on, and here I am still trying to save my dad's life. And all she did with banning me from him for the past year and all this chaos and all this, because really my injury ties back to all her ongoing crimes, or I would have never been in the place that caused my injury. What this has all done is caused all the truth to come out and caused me to piece it together and allow me the time to piece this together. And then with the damage to my home, same thing. It allowed me to have the time to put everything together with everything that has, with everything that has gone on. Has allowed me to put all this together and film these videos and get the truth out there and expose her to everybody and everything that has gone on. She actually dug her own grave by continuing on with these crimes, and everything that has happened has allowed me to put it all together and release it, especially with how gifted I am. So that is what's going on in the current. She does need to be apprehended. One way or another, this is going to happen. I just don't know exactly when. But her and the first tier individuals do need to be taken down immediately. So, yes, I have all of this spiritual help. Yes, that is how I receive all of these messages. It comes through in different ways. I just follow them, and I have for many years now. Since this has all happened, I just follow it, and I'm correct every time. I'm meant to be following it. I just follow what I'm told, and I do what I'm told from the other side. And again, I don't hear it. I don't have clairaudience. I have different gifts. So it's all there. That's who's backing me up. That's why I have so much power. That's why there's so much dark and there's so much light. And here I am weaving in between it all and managing to hop every hurdle and barely keep us alive each step of the way. That's what is going on. So yes, I am here to save my dad's life in the end. I don't know how much longer. However, I just have this feeling it probably won't be too much longer with the amount of videos I've released. But at the root is my paternal grandmother. So here she is, knowing her son's in danger in the manner in which she was, and she knows that I know everything because we had exchanged that look once she figured out what my mother was doing with poisoning her food. that is still what's going on with my dad, and why he's not home, and why he's blind, and why his injuries got so extreme, why he has a trach tube. That's at the root of every single thing. And the proof is in the pudding because I made the police reports in advance. So I have all the proof. I have other police reports my mother's made along the way. I have all these pieces of proof that fit together as one large picture, and all her actions have done was allowed me and bought me the time to put all of this together and then release it publicly and have the proof in hand. So she's basically dug her own grave. That is what I'm out here trying to do. And then once I get that situated, I will be able to talk more about everything else, kind of get more to where I need to go with the rest of the information that I have. And it's going to change many lives once I get to that point. But this is what needs to be addressed currently. That is how I have pieced all the information together. That's how I know what I know. And all these strange, odd circumstances along the way, it came together as one big whole picture. So, you know, I just kind of wanted to explain that further in depth because I know there's not another human being out here experiencing exactly what I'm experiencing or anything even close to it. And no time have I ever lived a normal life, and nor am I going to, especially with the injuries that I suffer from. But, you know, there is periods of time where I am okay-ish and I can kind of like go out from time to time now. And that was never the case before, and I didn't never know if I was going to reach that degree of, you know, have enough treatment to reach that level to where I could do those things and do some normal people things. So, you know, that has been the case the last few years, although there is still periods of incapacitation or times where I have to shelter in place, but that's what allowed me to put all of this together. So yes, I'm going to expose some more stuff. I will be back with the probate court video and what happened there fraudulently. I am going to defeat the devil in the long run. I am going to win this case. You know, there's been a lot of battles here along the way, but I guarantee you I am going to be the one that wins the war because this has been going on for almost 40 years now with me directly. So that is who is helping me. That is why you see such strange circumstances, how I'm able to come out on top, barely, of each situation, how I managed to just barely make it through. That's why it seems supernatural, because it is. Now, I will be back with more. Just had to catch all that on film real quick and let everybody know how it's kind of tied together and how I figured all this out. But I'll be back with more. Thanks. Bye.